Christmas Day with a trip to the playoffs, courtesy of their division rival, the Lions. Surprising loss to the Vikings, sealing the deal, and they will have Jared Goff staying at home while Jordan Love and the Pack prepare for a wild card matchup. As for the rest of the NFC, 6 teams have now clinched a spot in the postseason. 1 spot remains, and it comes down to the NFC South. Carolina can clinch the division with a win and Tampa Bay loss at Miami. The Panthers currently have a 47% chance to win the NFC South, according to ESPN Analytics. Obviously, injuries have been tough for Green Bay, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Micah Parsons, as we know, the headline there with the ACL tear that ended his season a couple of weeks ago. So, Kevin, as you look at this iteration of the Packers, knowing that they are in the postseason, even though they've lost a couple games here down the stretch, do you still consider them a Super Bowl contender?
No, and it stinks because I love this Packers team. I love Matt LaFleur. I love what Jordan Love can do. Micah Parsons was a third of their pressures. A third. You're taking that away. When Micah Parsons was on the field, they got to the quarterback like double as quick as any. Just him being on the field, his presence, the way that the entire gravity of the play went towards him because offenses were so worried about him, it freed up other guys. The sack rate of the entire team was triple what it was when he was off the field because of what he did to a play. He changed the defense. He was the deodorant of an entire side of the ball, okay? He's gone now. They're not at the Rams level. There's other teams now that are more complete because Micah Parsons changed the entire dynamic.
Yeah, totally disagree. You know, last year they were a top 5 defense without Micah Parsons. And you go back to that play, that winning play that Chicago had against Green Bay. Yeah. Keyshawn Nixon was a fingernail away from making an unbelievable play. That's how close they were. And look, Lucas Van Ness has been a disappointment. He's been hurt. I don't know if we'll get anything out of him. Rashawn Gary certainly has a lot of ability, Kingsley and Gambari. And I think more fundamentally, Jeff Hafley, their coordinator, he can use pressure. Look, their secondary is not ideal, but maybe they can hold up just enough. And look, I love Jordan Love. I think that's been well documented. To me, I think they could go on a run here, and maybe they're not beating teams in the same way, but they could survive Micah Parsons.
Well, I know Kevin thinks that this team is now musty because their deodorant is gone. Nobody wants to hang around people who ain't got no deodorant. That's first and foremost. I do believe that this team is still a contender, but it is absolutely different, right? When you look at the NFC, you think about the teams. I believe that the Rams and the Seattle Seahawks are in that top tier teams. And then you put the Philadelphia Eagles right below, not necessarily just based on what we've seen this season, but their history of playing throughout the playoffs. Nick Sirianni's understanding of where you need to be, but they're definitely on the level of the Chicago Bears. They're on the same level as the San Francisco 49ers because we're talking about team, if to Kevin's point, this is a team that can't put pressure on a quarterback. We're talking about other teams who are 11-4, who are teams that are vying for number 1 overall seeds in the NFC, who have some of the same deficiencies. But it has to be an aggressive Matt LaFleur, and it has to be a top-tier Jordan Love. The Jordan Love who we've been expecting to see so many times, who we've seen at different parts of his career, even different parts of this season, has to show up every single week. Some of those red zone woes have to go away. What we've seen from this team and their ability to drive the ball 20-20 but not put it in the end zone, Matt LaFleur has to find an answer for that. When I look at this roster, it's still plenty talented enough to compete to win the NFC, but it has to be done in a way that may need to be tweaked by Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley.
The difference, I think, in our argument is that the teams you mentioned that you put the Packers on a tier with, I don't have them as Super Bowl contenders. I don't have the Bears as Super Bowl contenders. I don't have the Niners. I have an A list here, which is Rams, Seahawks, Eagles. The Packers were on that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. They are no longer on that.
But, Kevin, look, Josh Jacobs could go off against Philadelphia. Like, there's ways those teams could be beat, and that's what I'm saying. There's no invincibility in the NFC this year. So I think there's enough ways that Jeff Hafley and, to your point, Matt LaFleur can scheme up ways.
I think they can steal one game against one of those teams, but not multiple.
I think the way you feel, though, like this becomes a matchup thing.
Yeah.
Which teams are they playing? When you look at the Los Angeles Rams, the team that went to Carolina and lost the game, you could see some deficiencies there, especially on the back end when they don't have the ability to get pressures. The Seattle Seahawks, Sam Darnold is still a question mark, in my opinion, because the rest. And so there's so many different things on all of these teams, but the Green Bay Packers, without Micah Parsons, need an answer from Jeff Hafley, but Matt LaFleur has to be at the top of his game in order for that team to win.
Speaking of question marks, we know that both Jordan Love, who got knocked out of last week's game with a concussion, and Malik Willis, the backup, are both questionable for tomorrow's game against the Ravens, since we love playing.
It don't matter. They can sit.
Do you know who their third-string quarterback is off the top of your head? Because I sure as heck don't. So one of those guys is probably going to play. Mike, if it is Jordan Love, if he is cleared from concussion protocol, we know that the Packers have already locked up their spot in the postseason. At worst, they'll be the 7th seed. Should Jordan Love play?
Absolutely. If he's healthy, he's got to be out there. And look, seeding is so impactful. Like, you want to be as high up as you possibly can. And by the way, I'm blown away by how good Malik Willis looks. Like, you talk about getting coached and developed and giving him some time. Malik Willis, to me, is a starter in the NFL. And he's going to be a free agent. I know there's a story for another day, but he absolutely should play. And look, one of the interesting things, it's likely that it's going to be Snoop Huntley on the other side. So maybe it's a little bit more of a conservative game plan because you're not going against Lamar Jackson.
Well, I got to answer this question. Yeah, Jordan Love should play. And I know Mike T's going to be like, well, you don't want Dak to play. But when you're talking about teams that win in the playoffs, there are teams that are healthy. So Jordan Love's health needs to be the priority for this team. But there are also teams that are hot. And part of being hot is continuity. Part of being hot is consistency. And if you want to get hot, it seems that playing against the Ravens defense is not a bad opportunity for a team to feel that way. The thing about the Green Bay Packers right now is Jordan Love I felt he was ascending. And if you watch the Denver Broncos game late in that game with the turnover, now you are injured against the Chicago Bears. You don't want some of that momentum that was building for him to slip away as they approach the playoffs. So in my opinion, if he is healthy, if he is full go, he should be the quarterback in this game against the Ravens.
I was going to say no, RC, then I realized, to your point, if you want to keep a quarterback healthy, have him play against the Baltimore Ravens pass rush. You will be upright all afternoon. I'm just looking at it. I think the answer is probably no, because his health is so important. I mean, you can lose Micah Parsons and win a playoff game, to your point, Mike. You can't lose Jordan Love. Malik Willis, as amazing of a story as he is and how good he's looked, especially coming from what he looked like in Tennessee, that's a great story. You can't win a playoff game like that. So I'm going no here, and I was wondering why Mike T was saying everybody should play. It's because he worked for Bill Parcells, the king of everybody should play, right? Yeah. It's Parcells, everybody out of the locker room, off the trainer's table, go play.
You're getting paid to play professional football. That's your job description.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're getting paid to play professional football. Sometimes you're getting paid to play the next year. But for Jordan Love, the bottom line is this. He understands, Matt LaFleur understands what's on the line. This isn't a time to play with his health, especially when it's concerning concussion protocol. His agent is the same agent as C.J. Stroud's agent, David Mulligetta. And I know him personally. The one thing he's extremely strict on is making sure any of his guys that are in protocol are fully healthy and ready to go, both based on what the team says and based on what the player is. And so if Jordan Love is on that field this Sunday, I know it'll be because he's ready, is because he's cleared, and because he feels good about being out there as well.
Yeah, Clayton Tune is on their practice squad. So if it's neither Jordan Love nor Malik Willis, that is the player that they'd be able to call up. You're probably one of many people in this country who have not heard of him being on the Green Bay Packers roster. But there is something to be said, though, about momentum. Remember, they limped into the playoffs last year. They were 1-5 in the division. They lost those last 2 games. We know what happened against the Philadelphia Eagles after that. All right, after the break, find out here why someone thinks the biggest headline Monday will involve 2 of the worst teams in the NFL.
2 of the worst?
And lots of impactful football this weekend. Kevin